used to think the worst thing that could happen in a marriage was the arguments, the silence, or a tearful goodbye. But I was wrong. The worst is when you try to surprise the person you love, and that surprise ends up dragging you straight into a moment you wish you'd never seen. All I wanted was to make my wife happy, after 10 days apart. I brought our 2 kids to Chicago without telling her, thinking showing up unannounced would make her smile. I thought she'd be touched. But I was the one who ended up shocked. There I was, frozen in the hallway on the 14th floor, staring at her hotel room door as some stranger walked out while my wife stood behind him in a bathrobe. No denial, no attempt to hide it, just the raw, plain truth staring me in the face. I didn't yell. I didn't demand answers. I just looked at her, took a deep breath, tried to keep my face calm because our kids were still waiting in the room next door. They didn't know yet that the family they believed in had just quietly cracked apart. I went back to the room. My daughter was holding a picture frame she'd made by hand, ready to give it to her mom. And in that moment, I realized what just broke wasn't just a marriage, it was trust, for all 3 of us. I used to believe that if you stayed calm enough, patient enough, and loved hard enough, then marriage could survive anything. I never imagined that what would slowly drag my family down wasn't some big, violent storm, but the quiet, the long, creeping silence. The kind that gives someone just enough space to start whispering to someone else, while their husband is rushing to reschedule meetings just to make it in time for school pickup. Lana was always busy, smart, capable, full of this magnetic energy that people naturally gravitated toward. I never tried to hold her back. In fact, I did everything I could to make sure she didn't have to worry about anything at homeschool runs, fixing the damn water heater, even handling the taxes. She used to tell me, "I feel lucky to have a husband like you." And I believed her, until I realized people only say things like that when they still look at you the way they used to. This last work trip was longer than usual, 10 days. She said her client in Chicago was restructuring their entire operations, and she was the only one with the full data scope. I believed her. I had no reason not to. She still posted pictures, office views, morning coffee, shots of the city skyline, but those posts weren't for me. I started to feel it when Ellie, our youngest, asked why Mom wasn't replying to her messages. I didn't know what to say. I just told her, maybe Mom's just busy. But inside, I was uneasy. Lana always called the kids at night, even just for a few minutes. But this time, silence. No texts, no calls, no response to the drawing Tyler sent from his art class, something she normally loved seeing. Still, I didn't think anything bad. Honestly, I figured maybe she was overwhelmed, or just exhausted, until that morning, when Ellie was laying out toast on the plates and suddenly asked, "Why don't we go visit Mom?" Dad. That question hit something in me. Partly because it was so innocent, but also because I missed her too. Not in a suspicious way, not to catch her in anything, just missed her. Missed how she used to walk by me in the kitchen and lightly touch my shoulder. Missed her laugh when she talked about her weird coworkers. So I booked the tickets. The 3 of us would fly to Chicago Friday night. Saturday morning, we'd knock on her hotel room door. Ellie made a small gift to bring. Tyler, as usual, didn't say much. Just asked, "Does she know we're coming?" I shook my head. "It's a surprise." He nodded quietly. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of hesitation. Like he knew something I didn't. Or maybe just a gut feeling. Still, I believed everything would be okay, because I loved my wife, and I didn't think someone like Lana could ever hide something big from me. I was wrong, but I didn't know it yet. The flight took off at 6 p.m., Portland to Chicago, just over 3 hours. Ellie had the window seat and spent most of the ride pointing at clouds, full of excitement. Tyler kept his headphones in the whole way, barely saying a word. I sat between them, phone in hand, trying to call Lana for the third time that day. Still the same cold, automated voice. I left a voicemail, pretending everything was fine, just checking in, asking how her trip was going. Still no reply. Outside the plane window, a late winter sunset painted the sky in soft orange, fading into gray. I stared at it and realized I was worried, not about the trip, but about her silence. Lana had never gone this long without a word. We landed in Chicago close to 11 p.m. local time. The wind hit us hard on the platform, making Ellie curl deeper into her puffy jacket. I pulled up my collar and tried to stay focused as we waited in line for the rental car. Tyler still said nothing, eyes locked on his screen. When I asked if he was hungry, he just shook his head. The hotel Lana was staying at was sleek and upscale, the kind of place with marble floors, warm amber lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows. She'd sent me photos before. I always thought she deserved nice things, but walking into the lobby that night, something in me hesitated. Like my body was telling me I was stepping into a place I wasn't meant to be. I told the kids to sit near the window while I checked in. Ellie was nodding off, still clutching the little gift she'd made a picture frame. Messy, but heartfelt. Tyler just kept his eyes on me. He didn't speak, but I could feel the weight of something in his gaze. At the front desk, I gave my name and asked for Lana's room. The night clerk typed a few keys, then gave me a polite smile. "She's in 1412, he said, then paused and added, "There are currently 2 guests in that room." I didn't react, just nodded, took the key card, and walked back to the kids. Our room was just a few doors down 1416, same floor, same hallway. I tried to smile when I got back, tried to look normal. Ellie asked if Mom was here. I said yes, told her we'd surprise her in the morning. For now, we'd go upstairs, settle in, and get some sleep. The elevator ride to the 14th floor was quiet. I stood still, hand gripping the strap of my bag, mind completely blank. The room was decent, big enough for 3, with 2 beds and a wide window overlooking the city lights. Ellie crawled into bed right away, already yawning. Tyler sat on the edge of the other bed, looking at me for a long moment. Then he asked softly, almost in a whisper, "Are we here to check on Mom?" I froze, then shook my head. "We're here because we miss her," I said, "because Ellie wanted to see her." He didn't say anything, just nodded slowly and slipped his headphones back on. I told them I'd go downstairs to grab some drinks, but instead, I walked out into the hallway, toward room 1412, Lana's room. I stood outside the door for a while. I don't know how long. My hand raised and lowered more than once. Finally, I knocked, twice, soft, but firm. No answer, but I could hear faint music from inside. Then the soft creak of footsteps on hardwood. Someone had just walked past the door. I knocked again, louder. A few seconds later, the door opened, and in that moment, everything changed. The first person I saw wasn't Lana. It was a man, tall, athletic build, maybe early 40s. His dress shirt wasn't fully buttoned, and I caught the faint scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air behind him. He froze when he saw me. His eyes widened not just from surprise, but like something had just clicked terribly wrong. Lana appeared behind him. Her hair was still damp. She was wearing a hotel bathrobe, one side slipping off her shoulder. Her eyes landed on me for maybe 2 seconds, then shifted away. The man turned to look at her, like he needed confirmation for what he was seeing. After a few seconds of heavy silence, he said he didn't know she was married, that she never mentioned a husband, never mentioned kids. His voice wasn't defensive. It wasn't even apologetic. Just shocked, like he, too, had been caught off guard, like he was a casualty in someone else's lie. He stepped back into the room, grabbed his coat, and said he'd go. Before walking past me, He repeated he didn't know anything about her family. Then he left. Quietly. Didn't say another word. I didn't move, didn't yell, didn't get angry. I just stood there, looking at her, for a long time. And the strangest thing, it wasn't her eyes that hurt me the most. It was her expression. Not panic, not shame, just mild annoyance. Like I was the one who'd ruined her night. I thought about Ellie, curled up with her handmade gift in the room across the hall. I thought about Tyler, still awake with his headphones on, pretending not to notice but definitely noticing everything. I thought about what it took to get here switching shifts, pulling the kids out of school, carefully planning the flight to arrive when she'd likely be free. I thought about all of it, in less than a minute. Then I gave a small nod, like I needed to confirm to myself that, yeah, this was real. I told her the kids were here, and that I wasn't going to ruin this trip for them. We'd talk about this after we got home, and then I turned around and walked away. The hallway was silent. So quiet, I could hear my own footsteps thud into the thick carpet. Every step felt like it dragged a little more of those 10 years of trust behind me wearing down, piece by piece. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't fall apart. When I got back to the room, Ellie was asleep, curled up in her blanket, still hugging that picture frame with both hands. Tyler was awake, lying on his side, staring at the ceiling. I sat down at the edge of his bed without saying a word. He didn't ask anything, but I knew he already understood. I didn't know what to say to him. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if I should say anything, but the way he looked at me made one thing very clear. There was no hiding this anymore. Not from him. Not from myself. I sat there for a while. Then I got up and turned off the lights. In the dark, the wind hissed softly through the window sill. I heard Tyler shift in bed. He couldn't sleep. Neither could I. So we just laid there in silence until morning. Lana knocked on the door around 8 a.m. I'd been up for a while. Couldn't sleep. Just sat quietly in the corner of the room, watching the early light pour in through the window. Tyler was still in bed, eyes closed, but I knew he wasn't fully asleep. Ellie had just woken up, hair a mess, rubbing her eyes, looking around groggily, when the knock came. She lit up. She knew exactly who it was. I didn't even have time to react before she was at the door, flinging it open. Lana stepped in. Light makeup, hair dried, beige coat, heels, and that familiar perfume. If I hadn't stood outside her hotel room last night, I probably would have believed she was just a wife coming home from a long work trip, nothing more. Ellie ran straight into her arms. She didn't notice anything strange, not the stiffness in Lana's hug, or how she couldn't quite meet my eyes, not the quick glance that darted away too fast. Tyler didn't get up. He just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at them for a second, then looking away. I stood up and told Ellie to grab her jacket so we could head to breakfast. She was thrilled, chattering nonstop, telling Lana everything. Lana nodded, smiled weakly, responded like she was reading off a script. She wouldn't look at Tyler, like she was afraid his eyes might expose the truth. When Ellie went into the bathroom, Lana stepped closer to me and said she wanted to explain. Her voice was quiet, flat, measured. She said she only wanted to protect the kids. That last night was a mistake, that I shouldn't let it all fall apart right now. I didn't say anything, just looked at her long enough that she had to turn her face away. I told her this trip was for the kids. She could come along or not, but I would be the one deciding how today goes. She didn't argue. After a pause, she said she'd come to breakfast, then had a client meeting later. I nodded. No fight. No drama. We went downstairs to eat. Ellie was all smiles, talking about how she wanted to go to the zoo, buy a fuzzy hat, take pictures with Mom. Lana just nodded and smiled along. Tyler sat quietly. Didn't touch his food. Didn't say a word. Didn't look at anyone. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. Just a reminder, I'm here. After breakfast, Lana said she had to go. She told Ellie she might be back in the afternoon if her meeting ended early. I didn't stop her, just nodded. Ellie waved for a long time as she left. Tyler didn't lift his head. That afternoon, I took the kids for a walk by the lakefront park. The wind was sharp on our faces, but Ellie didn't care. She ran ahead, laughing, hopping on frozen puddles, twirling like nothing had happened. Tyler walked beside me, hands in his pockets. Blank expression. After a while, he asked if I'd already seen what happened last night. I looked at him and gave a quiet nod. No words needed. He nodded back, like he'd already known, like this just confirmed something he'd suspected for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. If Mom really loved us, she wouldn't have done that. I didn't know how to answer. I just walked beside him. My throat tightened, not out of anger, but because for the first time I realized my son wasn't a kid anymore. He said he already knew since yesterday. Knew the moment he saw me coming out of the hallway without my wallet. Knew from the way his mom wouldn't look me in the eye at breakfast. Knew from the way that man showed up and disappeared like he was never even real. That afternoon, we went to the harbor near downtown. Ellie wanted to see the boats. She ran up and down the docks, taking pictures of seagulls, counting the white yachts lined along the pier. Tyler walked beside me, quiet, but always keeping an eye on his sister. We stopped on a wooden bridge. The wind stung our faces, mixing lake air with the old scent of damp wood. Ellie leaned against the railing, pointing at a cruise boat slowly drifting away from the dock. She grinned and said she wanted to ride it next time. I nodded and said, "Next time, with Mom." That's when Tyler turned to me. His voice was low, calm, but cold. He asked how long I planned to keep pretending. I didn't respond right away, just looked at him. Then at Ellie, still smiling, humming an old song, hands gripping a little bag of cookies. I gently pulled Tyler a few steps away. Then he asked me something that cracked me open. If Mom doesn't want to be our mom anymore, what exactly are we protecting? I didn't know what to say. The only thing I did know was that if anything was worth protecting, it was the light still unbroken in Ellie's eyes. That was it. I told Tyler I'd tell her. But not today. He nodded, then walked over to the railing and stood next to his sister in silence. We got back to the hotel around sunset. The lobby lights were already on. That man, him, was sitting alone at the far end of the bar, shoulders slightly hunched, slowly turning a near-empty glass in his hands. His eyes looked lost, but when he saw me, he stood up immediately. I told Tyler to watch his sister for a moment, that I had someone I needed to speak to. He nodded. Didn't ask any questions. We stepped out into a hallway off to the side, quieter, more private. You could hear every word there. He told me he felt awful, said he hadn't stopped thinking about it since last night, that he never meant to be part of breaking a family. If he had known she was married with kids, he said, things would have been different. Then he told me how they met. At a professional conference. Lana had been invited to speak. He was there representing a partner company, just managing logistics. The first meeting was purely work, a few technical discussions, a scheduled dinner, but somehow, they kept talking. The messages slowly drifted past professional boundaries. The tone in their calls changed. He said she was the one who took the first step, but he didn't step back either. Lana never mentioned she was married, not once. No wedding ring, no signs of a family. In his eyes, she was just a busy, independent, charming woman completely free. By the time he realized the truth, it had already gone too far, and even then, she still hadn't said a word about having a husband or children. I didn't interrupt, Didn't lash out. Didn't feel the urge to punch him like some movie character might. The only thing I felt was a kind of sadness I couldn't describe. After we talked, I took the kids back upstairs. In the elevator, Ellie asked if Mom would be joining us for dinner. I said maybe if she wasn't busy. When the doors opened, Lana was standing in front of our room, arms crossed, like she'd been waiting a while. She wore office clothes, her hair tied back neatly, face calm. I unlocked the door. Ellie squealed and ran to her. Lana bent down to hug her, then glanced at Tyler. He didn't smile, didn't even nod. We went inside. Ellie turned on the TV, lay back on the bed with the rest of her snacks. Tyler sat across from her, headphones in, but I could tell his eyes kept drifting back to us. Lana pulled me aside into the hallway, said we needed to talk. I didn't argue. We stood just outside. The door left slightly ajar. She started with an apology, said last night was a mistake, something that never should have happened. Said it was just a moment, nothing more. I stood still, silent. She didn't know that I had already heard everything from him, that it wasn't just a moment. As she claimed, it was deception, a choice, repeated and calculated. I looked at her for a long time, and the thing that hurt most wasn't that she slept with someone else. It was how easily she had lived like we didn't exist. I asked how far she planned to go if I hadn't shown up. She didn't answer, just lowered her head and sighed. I nodded, then turned to open the door. Before going back in, I told her we'd be leaving in the morning. Early. She didn't need to see us off. Inside. Ellie had fallen asleep. Tyler looked at me. He didn't need words. He knew everything. I turned off the lights and sat at the edge of the bed. In the dark, I thought about all the dinners we used to share, the little weekend trips, Lana laughing at one of the kids' jokes, all of it. Now it's just memory, and memories don't keep anyone from leaving. We left the hotel before the sun was even fully up. Ellie was still half asleep, her head resting on my shoulder as we made our way down to the lobby. She was still holding the small gift she'd brought, one corner bent out of shape. I didn't say anything, just gently tucked it into her backpack, like I was trying to hold on to what she still believed. Tyler walked behind us, dragging the suitcase without a word. He had grown up in just a few days. Not in size, but in the way he carried himself, in his intentional silence, his lack of complaints, his quiet acceptance. He didn't need me to explain. And maybe he didn't need an apology either. Lana showed up just as we were checking out. She was wearing her old gray coat, hair down, no makeup. She looked tired but not sad. She asked if she could come to the airport with us. I just told her. Simply, there's no need. It's done. Ellie was different. The moment she saw her mom, her whole face lit up. She ran into her arms, asking why she wasn't coming with us, why she wasn't flying home too. Lana bent down and hugged her tighter than usual, whispering something I couldn't hear. Tyler stood a few steps away. He watched them, no anger in his eyes, just cold distance. He didn't say goodbye, just nodded when I told him it was time to head out. On the way to the airport, Ellie fell asleep again, her hand still holding onto mine. I turned to Tyler and asked, quietly, if he was okay. He didn't look at me, just said, barely above a whisper, as long as I've got you and Ellie, I'll be okay. I turned toward the window. I didn't want him to see my eyes starting to water. The flight back to Portland was silent. I couldn't sleep. Images kept flashing in my mind: the hotel room, the door opening, Lana's face, all of it still sharp, like it had just happened minutes ago. I looked at Ellie asleep on my shoulder, then at Tyler staring out the window, headphones off, his gaze somewhere far away. I knew this moment would stay with him forever, not because he saw his mother betray us, but because it was the first time in his life he learned. Some things never go back to the way they were. 3 weeks later. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, me and Lana. Her hand rested on a stack of printed divorce papers. She had moved into a new apartment downtown. The kids and I stayed in the old house. Tyler no longer referred to her as Mom when talking about her. Ellie still asked when she'd be home for dinner. I usually stayed quiet, then changed the subject. Lana said she never expected it to go this far, that she thought, if we tried hard enough, we could start over, that it was all a moment of weakness. I didn't argue anymore. There was no point. I told her I couldn't live with someone who, the second she stepped outside the house, could so easily forget she had a family waiting behind. I told her forgiveness might be possible, but trust that doesn't come back just because you want it to. She lowered her head and went quiet for a long time, then signed. So did I. When she stood up and walked toward the door, I didn't stop her. I didn't say goodbye. I just watched the door click shut, a soft sound, but one that told me everything was truly over. We finalized the divorce on a Tuesday morning, in a small room at the family court. Everything was quiet. No fighting, no property disputes, just signatures, a few nods, and a strange, hollow weight in my chest I didn't know how to name. Later, Lana texted me. She asked if she could see Ellie, not at the house, but at the park, the one with the red maple trees where Ellie loved to run around in the fall. I agreed. Ellie deserved to hear something, from the mother she still believed would come home. I took her to the meeting spot, then stepped back far enough to stay out of the way. Lana was already there, sitting on a bench, hands folded, eyes on the ground. When Ellie ran up, she stood and bent to hug her. I saw her shoulders tremble, maybe from the cold, maybe not. They sat together for nearly half an hour. Ellie did most of the talking. I could see her hands moving as she told stories, probably about school, friends, whatever filled her days. Lana just listened, nodded, smiled faintly, every so often. She'd reach out and touch Ellie's hair. Near the end, I saw Lana pull something from her pocket, a small, handmade bracelet, slightly crooked, light purple. She slipped it onto Ellie's wrist, then bent down and whispered something. Ellie nodded, then hugged her tight. When she came back to me, her eyes were red, but she was smiling. On the way home, she said quietly, Mom said she still loves me, just can't live with us anymore. Then she asked, that still means she's my mom? Right, I nodded. As for Tyler, Lana didn't see him. She sent me a short message afterward, saying she couldn't bring herself to face him, that his eyes from that night in the hotel still haunted her, that she'd wait if he ever wanted to see her. It would be on his terms. Tyler never asked about the meeting, never mentioned the court hearing. He just came home, opened his laptop, and started his homework like nothing had changed. But I knew it had. He was holding it all in for his sister, for me, and maybe for that fragile sense of pride that comes when a 16-year-old boy realizes, sometimes, adults leave too. That night, he helped me with the dishes. Ellie was coloring in the living room, for the first time in weeks. The house was truly quiet. Not empty, just no longer waiting for anything. Tyler placed the last dish on the rack, then turned to me, his voice calm. Like a grown man, I think we're gonna be okay. I didn't answer, just nodded and put a hand on his shoulder. A small gesture, but enough to hold together what we still had left.